when a buyer owner puts their property in the market, there's different methods for determining market value. Sometimes it's an appraiser, sometimes it's a couple of realtors, sometimes it's what we call PFA, pluck from air, and we need from the property based on their mortgage or what they paid for it, which is really irrelevant. I mean, if you were buying a property and you were relocating to another city and the seller said, we determine the price based on our mortgage, and because we need to pay off the mortgage, and the mortgage is $100,000 north of the value of the home. Or they say, we paid $400,000 for the house in 2006, which is the peak of the market before the crash. And they say, well, so we paid $400,000 and we need to get at least $400,000 out of it. It has nothing to do with the value, what somebody paid for it has something to do with it, but it's a longer story in there. This is really about how do you determine the market value of your home. A lot of people will look at Zillow and it'll give you a Zestimate. And I encourage you to read the fine print about the Zestimates. In some cities, they give themselves 4 stars out of possible 4 stars. In some cities, maybe yours, they give themselves 1 star, which means their algorithm isn't that good. So when a buyer owner says, well, Zestimate said my value is blank, then thus it must be my value, until Zillow zips down on their number, and all of a sudden you're going, well, they're wrong. I don't agree with Zillow. They agreed with them before when they agree with me, but now they lowered their number. And buyers, unfortunately, often think it's real. They think the Zestimate is right. Now, if your marketplace has a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 seller to 1 buyer, you can actually test the market and push the value up a little bit, because a 1-to-1 market is all about growth. Now, a 7-to-1, 7 sellers to every 1 buyer under contract, you literally are depreciating. Now, that may not be good news to you, but it's true. There's no way there could be 7 girls at the dance and 1 boy, and it'd be good for the ladies, right? It's a depressing marketplace, potentially. Now, ideally, you're in a 1-to-1 ratio, because the probabilities of selling by owner are much higher, or even with the realtor, much higher than in the 7-to-1 marketplace. So determining your value, the importance of not only determining it, but what I call having a paper trail. A buyer wants to make an offer on your property, and they say, since you're not paying the brokerage fee, 6 or 7 or 8%, you're not paying those brokerage fees. And I've seen this happen so many times. They take the $400,000 price and lower it based on you're not paying a commission. Plus they want to negotiate 2 or 3% or so off the property, because the buyer says, well, if you're not paying the fee, why should I? So the buyer says, I want a lower number. Well, that doesn't make any sense, buyer, because if the asset's worth $400, whether there's a realtor there or not, if it appraised for $400, the value's about that, it's still worth $400, whether there's a commissioned salesperson involved or not. So the objective is defending your price, because the buyer could be the sweetest couple and they want to purchase your home, but they want a discount because you're not paying a fee, or they want a discount because they want a discount and they're just trying to negotiate. So as the matchmaker, listing agent, your job in part is to have what I call a decision packet. A decision packet walks the buyer through the data in the area, not just comps, but trends in the area. All you have to do is hit the Contact Us button. It will give you the decision kit. One major component of the decision kit is the how to defend your price. How to defend your price and having the data that's necessary. And it's not just comps. It's taking a look at the economic conditions around the subject property to share with the buyer that this is a good and wise investment. They're already apprehensive sometimes buying a home, because death, divorce, and moving are the 3 top stresses. And somebody sometimes is getting divorced and moving. So the stress is so high, and the question is the trust really high with the complete stranger that has the house they want to buy? So how do we minimize trust issues? and minimize a buyer from coming in lower on a price, just be equipped. And being equipped is having what we call a decision kit. And the decision kit, again, will actually give the buyer the economic conditions around the property. That if you are in a 1-to-1 ratio, that there is pretty confidently appreciation going on for their home. And once the buyer understands that the data is really objective, because they're not sure if the seller is objective, because sometimes the buyer's not objective. Sometimes they can see on their own the data is really objective, that this makes sense, that this area is appreciating, in value. And, because a realtor may do that, get the buyer in their car and show them a different home, and they may show them this area is appreciating and know that the area is at 2.7% growth rate for the past 3 years. Try to making the buyer more comfortable with the buying decision. But since you're the listing agent, you can get the data, we're happy to give it to you, that shows how to defend your price during negotiations, because let's not assume that just because it's a fantastic house, the buyer's walking through it, that they're going to pay your price. I've seen some very elegant homes sit on the market and sit on the market for months and months, sometimes a year, because the seller says, but the value's here. But apparently, the buyers are not agreeing. And if the seller had what I call a paper trail to help defend their price, they would hopefully pull that transaction together. The second thing about a decision kit is how to have a buyer make an offer on this home. So right now, if I said to you, hey, I'm a buyer, I want to buy your property, do you have the procedures that say, here's how you make an offer on a house in our metropolitan area? Because like when my son had to get a new car, and they had no procedures on how to buy a vehicle. And you can go, well, it's easy to buy a vehicle. Well, if you don't do it all the time, and they lift up the hood, you don't know if there's anything right or wrong in there. It comes with no warranty. And how do you get the title? How do you do these things? And all of a sudden you're going, I'm just going to go back to a dealer and buy that way. And a buy owner sometimes does it to themselves, where the buyer was in their house, and I had a situation where the buy owner had a purchaser. It was a $330,000 property, and the buy owner had a purchaser came through and offered $270,000. That same buyer came back through later when the home was listed with the realtor and paid right at $330,000. And it's not because the realtor, sometimes it was because what the buy owner did that chased that buyer away. And that buy owner couldn't pull the deal together. And I'm not advocating for the realtor, but they got 60 grand more for the property because the buyer was now comfortable with the process. If they were going to buy, they were going to buy low from the buy owner, but if it was listed, it doesn't always work that way, but it was really the buy owner who, and I knew this particular buy owner, they were cussing, and they were just using offensive words and things like that, and the buyer just didn't want to buy directly from them. If they are going to buy, they're going to come in low. And so I'm sure you wouldn't be cussing and things like that, but the objective is to have a decision kit. The decision kit bridges the trust factor. You're nice, they're nice, but they're not moving forward. So the decision kit gives the valuation, the trends in the area. In addition, the decision kit will show the buyer how to make an offer on this property. And that walks the buyer through the many steps involved to get the house under contract, and then for the comfort zone of the buyer, to walk the buyer through what happens immediately after the house is under contract, step by step. Once a buyer, like many of us, know what the processes are, it drops our defenses and our fears. Because when there is uncertainty, risk is there. And are people in general risk averse? Certainly. So how do you remove those things? Really have a decision kit. And again, just hit the contact us button. We're happy to put that together for you. All right. Thank you.